I would like to call to order this September regular board meeting of the Urbana Park District Board of Commissioners. And first item of business is to deal with any remote attendance, but since all five commissioners are sitting here in the room, there's none expected. So we can move on to accepting the agenda for the evening. I'm not aware of any suggested amendments, so.
I move we accept the agenda as presented.
Second.
That's moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the point? Hearing none. Let's do a roll call vote since we're all masked up here. Start with Cedric.
Aye.
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 Okay, and that carries unanimously. Brings us to our public comment portion of our agenda, and I believe that masked person is not here to comment
Not
at
yet.
this point in the agenda.
Right.
And there are no staff introductions today. Okay, so then we can move on to Roman numeral 4, appointments for UPDAC vacancies.
You'll see where staff's recommending that we have 3 people to recommend for approval. Tonight we have one, Brittany Tamman, for a full 3-year term. We also have Darius White for a 2-year term, filling a vacancy, and Lori Choquette for a 1-year term, filling a vacancy. That would give us a full slate, and we actually have one more person interested we'd like to interview. May not need them, would like to, if we could, save them for a full term next year, but we have often had people leave. So we want to talk with that person and just find out a little more information and see what they want to do, but we're pleased. And then last thing I want to mention, eventually we hope to get out of a cycle where so many roll off, because, we've had some gaps and disconnects. So we're trying to fill and hopefully get back eventually into a cycle where it's, a shorter number of people coming on at one time.
Yeah, I think this year's been unusual.
A little unusual last
The
couple.
2 people moved.
Yes.
And, we have, at this point, my opinion is that if we had somebody who was interested, I would put them on, since there's at least one person who's attended, this is her last year, and that she's attended no meetings in person.
I'll share that and pass
Yeah.
that on.
Yeah.
So this puts us at the 21, or
I have 16.
which is
Sorry,
the
that's on the, I guess,
Yeah.
above,
15.
meets our minimum
Right.
above, but on the lower side of that.
Yeah.
In my time here, we've never had 21 people in my 30 years, but it may have happened before.
Well, it never expected there would be 21. I mean, the way the bylaws strictly read is 6 new every year for 3-year terms. Well, the max is at 18, and there's always been attrition.
Yeah, I'm confusing it with the foundation board, it's 21,
Yeah,
I don't remember.
yeah,
Yeah, the foundation is 20.
Got it.
okay.
But I agree with Nancy, if we have somebody who's interested,
Get them if they're
Yeah, I
get them while
agree.
they're interested.
Yeah.
What is, and,
Well,
somebody's
but-
always gone in, it's not that
Yeah,
we don't have
I
enough
agree.
seating, it's not.
And I'm a little puzzled if this is only going to take us up, what we're proposed tonight would leave us at 16, is that
Correct.
correct?
That's my understanding, 16.
Yeah, and it's, well, maybe doing these people to partial terms is a way of getting things a little bit back in
That's what we're
cycle.
hoping, that those
But-
will not be 3 that get extended out with everybody, and hopefully they're
As long as it won't
on kilter.
get these folks' noses out of joint to then bring another person in for what just as well be a full, well, you're saying there may be somebody likely dropping off in a way.
I think it's to be anticipated.
Right.
It would
Yeah.
surprise me if there weren't.
Right.
Well,
And the 2, let's call them short-termer people are aware of that they're filling and they're comfortable, and they could be eligible. Our hope is they would want to
Yeah.
continue and
if we-
use their time, and
if we don't drive them away.
exactly. So that's our hope. That I know Kelsey was thinking, well, maybe then they could continue with to complete a full term in addition. So those are the names forward, and we can answer any other questions.
Well, I would move that we approve Brittany Tamman, Darius White, and Lori Choquette for the terms that are indicated in the motion.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, let's do a roll call, starting with Roger this time.
Aye.
Aye,
Aye.
and that carries unanimously.
Thank you.
So 3 new members. And now the UPDAC report. There was some draft minutes.
Yeah, I mean, this is an accurate representation of how the meeting went. I was unhappy that there weren't more people there. So I'd like to, I'm going to suggest that we have a look at the timing. I don't know, it just, I thought that it would be, I felt that there would be more people there, and I was surprised and kind of dismayed that there weren't more people there, because it was mostly the new people, and so they didn't get to meet
Right,
Especially for one of the meetings where there was like food.
right. One of the suggestions I had was maybe we might want to consider moving our kickoff to September. August can be a vacation time, people may be gone and visited, you know, kids' camps are ending or making other arrangements for the end of summer. So that was my first observation. Maybe we do it in September when it's sort of really back to school, as opposed, I mean, I was out of the office at that time myself.
Well.
So, you know, that was maybe where I was, but I just wondered if others, so I mentioned that to Kelsey, and she said, yeah, that could be, maybe we could ask or poll,
Yeah, just
or
thinking
when we
we
get
should.
together
I think we
in
should
our next
ask.
meeting.
We'll ask
think
at the
about
next,
that.
at the next board meeting, and, you know, not to make people unhappy that
Yeah.
they weren't there, but if they have ideas of what would make it a
Right.
more vibrant meeting, then
Right.
we need to
My
listen to
understanding,
them.
the new people came, but it was the ongoing, there were more of the ongoing UPDAC missing, and, you know, you want, hopefully,
Oh.
others to be there to kind of, you know, carry the weight and carry the discussion and, you know, feel
Yeah, and they're kind of at sea anyway, so.
exactly as
yeah,
your
so-
first meeting, and so that was a few observations we had.
And it follows the break month, correct?
Yes,
Maybe that's why?
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that could be too.
And it was late, I mean, I think 7 o'clock is, no, did we start at 7?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm thinking starting at 6:15 or 6:30 might.
We could do
So I mean,
that.
I think there probably, my point is there's a number of ways we could
Yep,
jigger that to get,
Yep.
to get better attendance and to have it live up to what
right.
we would like it to be as
Right.
opposed to
For like
just a.
the
yeah,
kickoff,
mhm.
yeah.
We also could consider some other vehicle, you know, like when we tried the dinner sort of thing. That was novel and seemed to connect, and now if we've done it a number of years.
Mhm, mhm.
So we probably have a number of things we could get
Sure.
together and talk about.
Yep, that's a good idea.
Okay. We'll set that up and get us together sooner than later.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good.
Dinner in the James room. Could be
Ooh,
interesting,
yeah.
actually.
You know, that's
Yeah,
an excellent, the
fun.
James room would be an excellent,
Yeah, which we had
yeah,
as
because I
a
think part of the problem.
program, but maybe we make that the program. Yeah,
Part of
I
the
hear ya.
problem is that it's dark when we're done.
Yeah, agreed.
Getting back down the hill without a really good
Mm-hmm,
straight up walkway
mm-hmm.
is a little difficult, so,
Take a fresh look.
Okay, moving on then to the consent agenda. And on tonight's consent agenda are approval of the study session minutes from August and the regular board meeting minutes from August. The receipt of the 3 monthly departmental reports. Approval of the monthly paid accounts payable. And action to accept the August 2022 philanthropy report and gifts listed with gratitude.
I move to approve all the action items on the consent agenda and accept all the information items listed on the consent agenda in an omnibus manner.
Second.
That's been moved and seconded, and I therefore take it to presume that nobody wants anything removed from the consent agenda. So at this point, there is to be no further discussion, and we must hold a roll call vote on this, starting with Cedric.
Aye.
I,
Aye.
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 And so we have approved the items on the consent agenda in an omnibus manner. Moving on then to financial reports.
All right. We're going to start with the fund balance reports as per usual. These are the reports that show our revenues and expenditures for the prior 12-month period, the budget for the current period, and the preliminary unaudited results for the 4 months ending August 31st, 2022. Page 1 of our fund reports, commonly called Sum 1, is all funds excluding our capital improvement fund. Revenues for this period, $5,833,000. Total expenditures, $3,198,000. This gives us a surplus, after 4 months. This means that revenues were in excess of expenditures to the amount of $2,634,000. Page 2, this is a snapshot of capital improvement funds standalone for the 4 months. Total revenues, $236,000. Total expenditures, $1,648,000. This leaves us with a deficit of $1,411,000. This is not unusual due to our bond cycle. We use our fund balance up first, and in December, when we receive the funds from our annual GO bonds, then that'll kind of replenish the coffer.
And not unusual given that we've budgeted to $7 million in deficit for the year, which
We had a lot of work, we had a lot of spending to
still
do.
have a lot of work to do.
No problem. I don't believe this will be a problem.
Well, and we do most of that, we can't do so much of that kind of work in January as well, so it's.
Yeah.
For
but
sure.
Yeah.
For sure. All right. Page 3, or Sum 3, this is all funds district-wide. Note that the ending fund balance for the district as a whole, $15,076,000. The following pages are the remaining main working funds. That would be our general fund, rec, museum, and the indoor pool. Moving on to our second report, this is our treasurer's report. This is a report of the amount of cash that the district has as a one-day snapshot, August 31st again. All 25 funds are listed here with where our cash is invested listed across the top. And we have $18,526,345.44. Page 2. The top section, this lists the amounts that we have invested in interest-bearing accounts. And of the $18,526,000 total dollars, $16,143,000 of that is out in investments at varying rates. Although interest rates are not normally in our favor, they are here. So we've got some good investments at some good rates right now.
Okay.
The lower section of page 2, this is our interfund loan sections. There are no changes here. And page 3, the last section of our treasurer's report, this lists all the disbursements for the month of August. The vendor payments listed here does match the paid accounts payable in the consent agenda. And total disbursements of funds for August, $2,006,673. I present to you the treasurer's report for approval.
I move we accept the treasurer's report for audit.
Okay.
Give it to Cedric.
I think Cedric won that virtual tie. That's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion or questions on this matter? Hearing none, we'll start roll call with Roger.
Aye.
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 And that carries unanimously.
All right, and the last report that we usually talk about is our capital budget report. Please note that any new activity during the month of August will have an asterisk in its appropriate column. This will be quick because all the spending that Andy's been doing has been in the current budgets. So the first one is our 2019A budget, and there were no new revenues. Under our Crystal Lake Park, we paid Fairgram $10,244 for design. We paid Open Road $618,644 for construction. And Farnsworth is our winner at the bottom.
Yes,
$49,564 for health and wellness design, $201,279 still for design, but out of our park grant arena, and then another $63,668 out of our DCEO grant.
It's
I-
really nice to see it in the fuchsia.
It really,
Yeah.
That makes it so legible.
Oh,
Thank you for
good.
doing
it
that.
is.
Yeah.
I really like that.
Yep.
Fantastic.
And I would also say it's very nice to have the actual comments as to where that went, just
Yep.
in a quick pass. That's really a nice addition.
Excellent. That's the goal, to make it as easy for you guys to enjoy it at the moment, but then be able to look back on it and go, what was that asterisk all about? You know,
Yeah,
so
yeah, that makes a huge difference. And it just pops out at you, so you don't have to go.
yeah,
Well,
good.
some of our old eyes are.
Good deal.
Yep.
Page 2 is our 2022 capital budget. In this budget, we did receive $2,500 in tributes and donations. That was for the Worley family. And then down in the expenditures, we did purchase $6,534 in tribute donation benches, $54,290 in court rehab. Court rehab is going to go across several line items across a couple of budgets. And then another $137,940. So that's all on this budget. Then on the third one, which is budget 2021, again, no revenues.
Can I interrupt you? So all of
Absolutely.
that 137 was from donations?
No,
Oh,
nope. It's from that bucket. It's
Oh,
the
okay.
expenditures from that revenue bucket.
gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Yep. 2021, no new revenues in August. Expenditures, we'd spent $4,557 for wear mats. Those are at the end of our slides and under swings and whatnot. A little bit of lumber, $125. Under the trails projects, we bought a little bit of concrete, $664, and some rock, $16. Hardscapes and fencing for Blair, a little bit more of the courts rehab, $105,800. Couple more lines of Blair improvements, $29,297 for construction, and in Blair Park, the benches, $8,710. A little further down, where our outdoor learning pavilion line items, expenditure line items, Petrie Coon, we paid $9,008. And then at the very bottom, our catch-all contingency, Blair Park improvements additional, we spent $10,711 additional construction costs, some rock for $1,917. Next to the last line item, Perkins improvements, we paid Diggett $1,294. This was, the actual entire bill was $14,935. This was the final bill for our 2-year maintenance, and there was a change order. But the majority, of that bill, the majority of it was depleting what's in that Perkins fund account. So this was just the last little bit of it. And then the very last line, Ambucks field drainage, we paid Thornton Ray $7,327. And there are no additional revenues or expenditures in any of the following. The only reason I included them is because they still have a little bit of a balance in them, but there was no activity.
We exceeded our 6-page limit. 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
Any additional questions on the capital budgets? If none, I will turn it over to Andy.
All right, thank you very much. I've got my usual pictures for the updates. And I am starting with the Crystal Lake Park Road project, which I've shown here as a snip from the turnaround area. The overall project's basically 95% complete, but in the last month, this specific area has really been the holdup for really almost all the remaining work at the site. And so the new retaining wall, concrete retaining wall, and then the turnaround, the concrete crew hopefully will be in shortly. And it's the final bit of base repair and asphalt work that's needed all through Crystal Lake Park is in the lower west lake house lot. And we're waiting on this specific area to wrap up before Open Road can get in and work on the specific parking lot there. And then so I can try to blow this up a little bit.
So do those stripes between the two wheelchairs mean that there's, that they essentially will share that open space, so that you're only losing 3 as opposed to 4 spaces for handicap parking?
Yeah, I think you used to have a specific lane for each spot,
Yeah.
and now they changed it where you can actually share it.
Oh, good.
And so when we actually updated some of our striping elsewhere in the park, we actually got to revise some of that striping and gained a couple other spots elsewhere by sharing those lanes.
Super.
And then so here's that specific area that I had from the plans where you can see their footings that they were preparing. I might have shown this picture at last meeting as well, and then starting to put their forms up for that large concrete retaining wall. And then here's from up top. You can actually see more of the wall here that they have set. This is the form for what will be the concrete. And this white portion here is actually the stamp that will actually give the relief of that concrete to give it that natural stone look. Right here you can kind of see how it has that relief pattern on it. And kind of this is where they're more at currently. This is probably about a week or 2 ago here when they were working about halfway through the wall. You can see the relief stamp pattern, and then the color that we matched as closely as we could to limestone blocks around all throughout the park, really. And we actually had a sample of the block that we used for the ramp down to the boat dock that they used at the concrete mixing plant as well to try to get it as close as possible. And then over here on the right-hand side, you can see the termination of the wall and then the staking out of where they're starting to get things moving for what will be that turnaround area, and then a garbage enclosure as well. And so I think I talked to Open Road this morning. They have a subcontractor who does the concrete work, and they're hoping to finish up potentially in the next few days here. And there's another concrete subcontractor that will then come in and do the curbing associated with the turnaround and any other spots in the parking area. And then I believe next week we should be seeing some milling and probably base repair. And I'm not sure if they're going to get to the asphalt next week or not. But I'm very optimistic by the end of this month we should have a finished parking lot, as long as everything goes well.
What are the big blotches on the concrete? Is that just?
So they vibrate when they're doing each panel, and if there's any little voids that don't look exactly like the rest of the relief, then they come back in and do a cover coat of it, and then do another stamp on it there as well.
They do stamp it again.
Yeah. Yep. And then so now elsewhere in Crystal Lake Park, our ITEP Broadway project has had quite a bit of action in the last month. Bear Graham, who's our engineer, had a deadline for an IDOT submittal of their preliminary specifications, plans, and a budget estimate, and that was due last Friday. And so here you can kind of just see where we're picking up from the previous ITEP project on the corner of Park and Broadway. And we've got our 10-foot wide path. There's not a lot of real estate in this area to do any sort of recreational curvature of the path, so it's fairly straight until we get just a little bit past the seating plaza, which you can see here from our rehab project, and then they'll have a little bit of connection work with that. And once we get past the tree, we start getting a little more recreational with the path. And as we get closer to the saline, here you can see the bridge and our new crosswalk that will then be placed, and a connection to the path that's heading north of Broadway. And we took a lot of time looking in this specific area right here for a safety perspective, people coming off the bridge, making sure we had good visibility from vehicles leaving here. We actually had to relocate the bridge a little further. That would be to the east. We were cognizant of the stone pillar here and the sight lines from vehicles. And so we also wanted to be aware of future one-way road transition and how this would work with that. And Fairgraham, I believe, will probably be working with us on that in the future. So it was a good opportunity to take a look at this whole area and make sure we had it prepared for a safe as possible connection after the path's complete, and then once we do the one-way transition. And so here I took an image of, this isn't exactly what the bridge will look like. It's probably pretty close. It's the weathered steel truss-style bridge that'll have kind of a little modified bow to it. And so that's probably a fairly good example of what will be there at the site, and honestly probably a fairly good example of what we will probably be doing elsewhere in the park, something similar to that. And I think I mentioned as far as the IDOT submittal, they also had a cost estimate that was included with that. So if you remember, we get 100% funding up to what our grant estimate threshold included. So that would be from federal and IDOT funds. And for construction, that is right around $667,000. And our cost estimate that was completed by Fairgraham and sent to IDOT has us about $607,000. So we're actually about $60,000 under what our grant threshold would be. And so once bids come in, you know, obviously we don't know the exact pricing at this point. If it's below that $667,000, everything will be covered by state and federal funds. If it's over that $667,000, we'll have funds that we're going to need to apply to the project to make up for that, which we have planned for and have protected currently as well. And so part of that submittal date was a requirement for a bid letting. It is an IDOT bid, and that is scheduled for January of '23. And so we're still tracking with meeting that bid letting. And then that would get us pretty well prepared for construction documents. All the grant forms work out through the spring, late winter, and construction next summer. We had to set a date for completion as part of that preliminary submittal to IDOT, and right now we're targeting September 15th next year for that. And last kind of big project I wanted to touch on was our Updeck Learning Pavilion and what's been going on out there in the last month. And so here's kind of the first real pavement that was going down on the site. The first area they were working at was the path connection that would go from the nature center and the nature playscape along the road down, and then over here is where it begins to head towards what will be the new Updeck Learning Pavilion. And here's specifically with what will be the new pavilion itself. So here's pouring of the footings for what will be the prefabricated pavilion that's expected to be delivered next month. And then here's more with the structure where they're setting forms up for the foundation. Right here would be the bathroom. Over here would be the storage. And then this is kind of what it looks like as of the end of last week, or maybe even yesterday. And now you can see here's the fireplace, here's the bathroom, storage, and then here's kind of looking off towards the east. So we're looking into the pavilion, into the fireplace here. You can see the footings for that pavilion. And then the other main area they've been working on in the last month is the path then that would go towards the northeast from the pavilion, then connecting to the playscape itself. And so things have been going pretty well at the site. We did have to shift the pavilion about 15 feet once we were getting started and setting things up to help protect and save a tree. And other than that, things have been going pretty smoothly. I don't have a firm date on that pavilion being delivered. A lot of things will kind of fall in line after we have that on the site, but we're still anticipating it in mid-October, which would give us plenty of time to have full completion before our grant deadline which is next spring. So, other than that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Looking good.
Exciting.
Lots of progress.
Went by it today, it looks really good. They were busy on it.
What form does that pavilion come in? I mean, is it in various pieces? That-
Yeah, it's, well, my only time I've seen something come in with the pavilion would be the Crystal Lake one, and it was a much smaller type gazebo thing, but it came in separate posts and then the roofing portion. This one's so large, I'm not sure specifically how it is going to come in. I know the posts will be in separate, but it's prefabricated, so they have to get it on some sort of probably wide load shipping vehicle to get there.
Like one of the wind turbines moving around town.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Okay, any other questions? Hearing none, then let's move on to the executive director's report.
Great, we have a few things. We'll start out having Recreation give us an update for our final report on Crystal Lake Family Aquatic Center.
Yep. So preliminary, same type of numbers I've been giving you the last few months during the summer. Our member visits in 2019 was 6,724. In 2021, we were at 3,640. Our membership visits in 2022 is 7,964. So member-wise, we had more visits than we have the last couple of years, so that's good. Patron visits, so paying at the gate. 2019, we had 40,795. 2021, we had 28,163. And in 2022, we had 32,808. So not quite as good as before the COVID year, but improving each year since we've been back open. So that does not include, typically at the end of the year when we do a full report, we will give you, visits for programs. So swim team visits, and so that adds to our numbers total in the end. But that gives you a rough shot of the people that are coming in through the gate for daily admissions.
So is that Nadiators for swim team, or is it other swim teams?
Nadiator swim team.
Okay.
And water aerobics visits and all those things, we add those numbers in at the end as well. And camps, our camps. Revenue in 2019 was $254,235. In 2021, it was $261,124. And in 2022, it was $286,448. So from a revenue perspective, 2022 has been the best year we've had, I would say, ever. But there's also been some price increases and things like that since then. So I would say we've had, there was probably 5 times in the evenings at the end of the year where we had to close early. We're not open, but we were open for all of our morning and afternoon swim. But lifeguarding staff, guard staff, caused us, we had to close a couple times. We were fully staffed for Labor Day, but then the weather did not cooperate, which was a real bummer. But we can't complain. The rest of the summer was pretty nice for us. But I do believe if Labor Day, we were the only pool in the area that was open, so it would have been a nice, nice opportunity for us. But
How do our entrance fees compare to local? Does the Champagne into, Monticello or into general?
Champagne and us are the same.
Okay.
We make a phone call each year as we evaluate. There's one, I think we're about $1 off. I'd have to check. I think we were $1 lower than Champagne on an entry fee, and that was just because they had made a call without talking to us, but our memberships were the same. They were doing some things district-wide as a financial move that I wasn't ready to make based on the fact that, you know, coming out of COVID and everything else. So, Rantoul, we don't really compare with Rantoul. I mean, we haven't.
Yeah, no, I was just curious to see
yeah.
whether we were they were in our ballpark, we were in their ballpark, if we were a lot more expensive, if we were a lot less
We
expensive.
typically are the exact same as long as we feel comfortable with moving to what they move. They want to move quicker than we usually do.
think
So
they
we're not
increased.
more.
I think they increased their staff wage and raised their price, so they
Yeah.
were trying to make up some ground. And that was
Right.
a last-minute kind of decision, if I recall.
We weren't even we weren't informed of it.
Right.
So
It was too late.
until
Well,
it's
but
too
it's
late.
better than being ahead of them.
Yeah,
Oh,
we're
for sure.
definitely below it. Yeah. So all in all, it was a good year. Very proud of the aquatic staff. We were probably, I'd say, 2/3 of the amount of staff that we normally are, and to be able to be open the way we were and be safe, and we had a really good core of guard staff that were all willing to work, and we paid some overtime to make it happen, but they got through it.
Yeah, as a, I was there 3 days a week, and I mean, I think it's not just me who felt that the guard staff was really good. I mean, and there's just somebody sitting in a chair watching the old ladies in the, in the diving well. But they were cheerful, they were friendly, they laughed at our stupid jokes, and it was a lovely, very diverse group of people. And we never had to sit and wait. They were accommodating if we wanted to sit on the stairs in there or extra class. I mean, it was a good group, and I think, not just speaking for myself, but everybody in my class at least, thought that they were pretty terrific.
Yeah.
And my guess is that that's the general public attitude. I mean, I think you've done a really terrific job with staffing over the years, and this year is just no exception.
Appreciate the compliments.
Yeah.
We'll pass them on.
Yeah, well, it just adds to the niceness of being outside.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Is when you've got cheerful,
Right.
happy, helpful people around you.
Part of the atmosphere.
It is, and it makes it. You don't think it makes much difference, but overall, I think it makes a big difference.
Oh, yeah.
I agree. We're very proud of the staff and the
Yeah.
fact we made it to Labor Day. That's just wonderful.
Well, and if we were the only ones in the county, that's pretty impressive.
Now, as you know, we mentioned this before, many districts are, moving to close their outdoor pools earlier. They're just not able to compete or hold staff or, keep the attendance coming. So far, we've continued that, so each year we could definitely take a look at it, but it seems to be working for us. So we hope that continues.
Yeah, I would say more, the norm is closing when high school starts.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, about mid-August,
Yeah.
or when the sports teams start.
Well,
Maybe they're open on the weekends only, but
Right.
a lot of I know Charleston for
Lot
for
of 'em are
years,
just
that they've closed
Closing,
since
yep,
school starts, they're
Mhm.
done.
right.
I think if you have a good work environment, it's easier for people to stay when it's a little more inconvenient to them. And I think that's another part of doing a good job with staff, is that you've made it a good place to work, and people aren't just ready to say, I've got 2 more days and then I'm out of here.
Right. Or leaving early.
Yeah.
That can happen too.
Yes, absolutely.
Good. Moving on, just wanted to pass around the new report that we got from the Diversity Lab.
Holy cow.
It's very exciting. We just got it, and so just read a little bit about it, but certainly we'll get copies out and links to the board.
They don't charge by the pound, do they?
And we'll plan for session with the board and with UPDAC to go over all the findings.
It
But
will be.
just want to let you know it was done, the report's in, and a lot of good information. It's overwhelming, so we're really excited about that. Want to thank all our researchers.
I want to play with this.
Put a lot of time and effort, thanking staff and the You Belong Here Matrix team for, the support to keep moving in this direction. So we're really excited. I'm sure we'll get more time to talk. Also want to thank the rec staff for the the ending of summer events, kickoff of fall events. We've had a great start. The Climate Action Week, August 22nd through the 28th event was really, really good. And Jazz Walk followed. We had a really good turnout. I think Janet's reporting about 2,500 visitors that came for that event. So I think we had a really good turnout at the foundation event. Great weather. Coming up next is the Pride Fest, October 1st. I don't want to get into Michael's report, but just we're seeing these succession of really high quality, fun and interesting events that draw a lot of people in. So that's what we want, and we're excited, and staff really does a good job at that. Continuing on, we're still having discussions now with the city about looking at Lincoln Avenue as part of offerings for the Heritage Trail. As you know, Janet's reported on the overall countywide plan to identify a number of locations and places throughout the county that have a really important story to tell. For us, I think we've been focused on the King Park, King School neighborhood. So the city did have some plans to expand the bike trail down Lincoln Avenue heading south. My understanding is they stopped before the park, and we're having discussions, will they continue to widen that pathway along Lincoln all the way through King Park. So if that can happen, then we'll certainly start, the beginnings of bringing people together to start talking about, how does the opportunities look to enhance the sculpture and some of that, landscaped area there. What kind of stories do we want to tell? How do we want to format that? What sort of interpretive format? So again, it probably takes a number of years to get into place, but getting it started, getting the infrastructure in place is step one. So we're excited about that. I know I'm working with Urbana Rotary on a peace pole project that'll go, we just wrote a Rotary grant, and the plan is to install the peace pole in King Park when that piece is ready. It's, relatively small, low cost element, but the idea is that, promoting peace and part of that story that we're trying to tell there. Also, just wanted to mention the Wandell Sculpture Garden 25th anniversary, which we kicked off with Climate Action Week. We have it going all the way, and Jazz Walk, because they're just a week apart. We'll be going through this whole year. We've got really important and exciting varieties of art and expression of culture each month. That's planned. And then we'll culminate with the Jazz Walk in 2023 as the wrap up. We're hoping to have the Wandell Legacy Circle in place. There's, hopes that's progressing and we would meet that schedule. Also, you probably saw, but here's the 5 new sculptures that came in as far as the front end. We've got a number of asks out there. It's an interesting business because kind of went to all of our friends, asked who had work. People are checking where things are, if it's leased, if it's coming back. So it's always good to ask more people. Not everybody's able to deliver, or it won't be exactly what we were hoping for. So we have a number of pieces out there, so that should be exciting over the next year and give us a good celebration for the 2023 year. I did want to update folks. We just had a change. The CU Special Recreation Manager, which I think I reported last month, the Champaign Park District staff made a change in decision, and Christina Mott will be the manager for CU Special Rec. We originally thought there was going to be a shared manager, as I presented in my report last month, but I think their staff determined at the last minute that that would be the direction that they would recommend. So again, as the administrators of that program, that's sort of their employment call. But certainly Christina's been there the longest of our staff. She has a lot of great skills, so we look forward to working with her. And if, just as a side note, I didn't know if you all knew that Joe DeLuce announced his retirement. He'll be finishing in December of this year. So we look forward to, the eventual replacement, working with a new person on the CUSR board. So we anticipate that. Next up, just wanted to mention the ARPA update. As you know, we've been talking as much as we can with the City of Urbana and Champaign County on contributions of their ARPA funds to go toward our health and wellness. As we understand, I think we just found out that the application for the city, from the city, is now available, or will be out in a few days. So we'll be jumping right on that, starting to work on that to get that together. As you know, the county is holding and waiting for any announcement from the city. And I think, as I mentioned, our concern is they're also suggesting they want to wrap up, their process. They want to make sure their funds get out, that people, get help, basically. So, we're not sure how that'll all work out, if we'll still be, in line for any support, or if their process will move on without us. But I think we have to follow the schedule that's been given by the city, and that's our intent, and we hope that both groups will see the high value in this facility and what it could do for Urbana and Champaign County. So we'll keep pushing on that. But up next is the application, and, it's on us to do a really good job on that application to make sure we get, every consideration that we could. Next item, just want to mention, we did receive the Gold Leaf Award from the International Society of Arboriculture, the Illinois Arbor Association. That's the state chapter of ISA, for this 2022 Arbor Day. As you remember, likely, we had more of a job fair component, which I think was very creative, and we'd never done that before. Essentially, we had upperclassmen from Urbana High School, which was a brand new audience, come over to Blair Park, and there was a whole host of professionals talking about green industry jobs and opportunities. Probably the big wow was the tree climbing opportunity for people to get sort of hoisted up and sit in the ropes and saddles, and that was pretty exciting, and probably tipped the award in our direction. But again, I think the whole staff and committee, working with the city staff, everybody had input, and I think this was a really good move to, how do we show people how to plant a tree, but also how to get a job. And so we know that that particular audience, a lot of the future farmers of America, folks that would be maybe more geared toward, careers in that sort of field, we got a lot of good feedback. So again, thanks to the Parks District staff, the city staff, everybody, all the volunteers, everybody that helped with that. Moving on, just a small note, we did lose a major branch on the historic oak, the bicentennial oak at Leal Park. Very sad. I think don't really know what happened. The only thing we could suppose is it rained for that entire day on that, I guess, Sunday, Monday night. We just wondered if, in talking with Brad Johnson, if the weight of the leaves were just enough to weight it down. Didn't look like there was rot, but a major branch came off.
Did it hit anything?
They did
on the ground?
no, it just landed, missed the sculpture, just sort of touched down. But it was, large enough to be its own massive tree of its own. But just kudos to the, arbor staff on our team. They did an excellent job of cutting and making sure everything was cleaned up and there was a clean cut. So if you would look at the tree, you'd probably never know that it lost a major branch. But it was that one that kind of went out 90 degrees toward University Avenue and gave a lot of shade out in that area of the park. So as you know, we keep our eye on all three of those older trees. This bicentennial tree does have some, bark disturbance, what looks like rot at the base. So we're always concerned. We know that oaks take many years, to go through their senescence, but doing everything we can do to make sure we keep those trees healthy. Wanted to just introduce something and kind of get it out in your minds. We're starting to have discussions about electronic bikes, and I just wanted to bring your attention, from my bike perspective. I know when they first came out a number of years ago, there seemed to be a sort of a negative, concern about electric bikes and, what they would do. It's not real biking, it's cheating, it's, all these different ideas. But more recently, I've been talking with Champaign County Bikes, and I think, they're very much in favor of electronic bikes. I know that Champaign Park District right now, I believe they don't allow electric bikes. We have some restrictions on motorized vehicles, but I think it's something that we need to begin talking about. What I'm hearing is, one, we're seeing a lot of serious bikers that are starting to age out. They want to continue riding their bikes, they just need a little assistance. So I would suggest immediately that's an age-friendly, thing that we should really be thinking about accommodating. Two, they're just very popular, and I see it as a linkage to electric cars and other electric, devices like that. Three, I think there's a real economic and an equity issue. What we're hearing is a lot of people need them for jobs, to get to work. They're not just joyriding, but they're literally either going to school to work or do school on campus or get to their jobs or both. So it's a low-cost, reliable transportation mode that we need to be open. think some things that complicate this discussion, we need to pay attention, is we're also seeing a real problem in our own parks, Champaign parks and the forest preserves, with mini bikes, four-wheelers, three-wheelers, other mobile, similar type of devices that can be more destructive and that I think go at a higher rate of speed and people are much more fearful over. So, and the other is the scooters. You may have seen the scooters. Derek was telling me somebody passed them on University Avenue at 50 miles an hour on a scooter with no helmet, you know, those stand-up electric
so not
scooters.
like a Vespa kind of thing.
No, it's not a, like
50
a,
miles an hour?
that's what he said. Now, he may have been
I
exaggerating.
have ridden one, and it could not go over 18 miles
Okay.
an hour.
Well,
But I haven't ridden them in this town. I've ridden those
Right.
stand-up scooters in Memphis.
Right, but that's like the kind that you like,
But they,
that
They
you
might-
do like the e-bike that you like,
yeah.
right? So
You
this
mean
might
like a
have been someone's
motorized scooter, like
Yes.
a Vespa?
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
sorry,
yeah.
gotcha.
I assumed he meant the stand-up. He said scooter, so it
Well,
could have been
it could
a
be someone's
two, a
personal
sit-down.
one
Yeah, I
that
guess
they
that's-
own,
that's
that they
mo-
could like
Yeah,
theoretically,
Oh,
Sure.
juice
Soup up.
it up.
yeah,
Deregulated.
effectively.
yeah.
Deregulated, 'cause
But the
Like,
ones that
I'm-
we're
I'm like-
renting, I don't think go that fast.
Right, they can be, I was just gonna add, the VO
Yeah.
bikes that you see out, they can actually be controlled by a geography device on it, where let's say, if we told them, we're gonna allow e-bikes, and we're gonna set a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit, if they entered, my understanding is, if they enter an Urbana park, it throttles down.
Yeah,
It
and
will-
that's
Oh, really?
and that's
So-
my experience. So I rode these in Shelby Farms
Right.
in Memphis, and in
Right.
high pedestrian areas, they even throttle them down
even lower,
even lower.
yeah.
And then they also have a kill switch where,
Right.
like, if there's I don't know if the VO do, but some of them do. Like, if you don't want them past a certain radius, they just shut off.
Right.
So you can't ride them.
So
Certain
there's
Oh, no
quite a bit of
kidding. Yeah.
technology that goes
oh
along
man,
with
Big
it.
Brothers.
But I guess my question is like, when you're talking about like accommodating this, what do you
Yes.
have in like in mind?
Well, I think, you know, we should probably really think this through, get more information, have some more discussions, try to find out what campus is gonna do. My sense is, no matter what we do to ban them or allow them, people are gonna use them. So what it'll help us is if we could begin to set speed limits. I've had for years requests from different people over the years of put up speed limits at Crystal Lake and at Meadowbrook. The challenge is, how do you monitor, how do you enforce, you know, how do you really get your hands around that? This would give you a way to set a speed limit and have a little better chance of at least dealing with that issue. So again, we'll have a lot of time to think about it, get more information, get educated, make our final, you know, recommendations or decisions, but they're here, they're expanding, businesses are selling them, people are using them. And my hunch is if we want to hold on to banning, people are just going to do it anyway. And then we'll be blamed for not enforcing, and then it looks bad on us. So anyway, I just want to introduce that. I'm going to start to meet with the Champaign Park District staff on Thursday to kind of revive, you know, where they are, what they know, and try to, you know, see if we can all get to yes on what's the appropriate thing for, and it may be limited, only certain types. My understanding with the e-bikes, there's virtually 3 types. The pedal and the electric together go a certain speed. I'd call them low-speed type that are probably low, you know, battery capacity, and you only go so fast. And then what I'd call more advanced that have much higher speeds. You know, they're intended to go much longer distance. So for example, the Kickapoo Rail Trail, I've already had people talk to me about, hey, I'd love to be able to go all the way over to Oakwood someday, but I need some help. I don't know if I could pedal over and pedal back the same day. And certainly that's an off-road, you know, trail. So that's an area we would want to have talks with the KRT group. I want to bring that up Friday at our next meeting to start introducing them to the idea of what are we going to do about. And again, what I'm also sensing and reading is, you know, there's just a lot of people that are fearful. They think it's bad. It's a new invention, so it's got to be wrong. So there's sort of a bias, I guess, out there against them. And I think we need to break it down and analyze. And then can we put together a safe, reliable, reasonable approach to how we want to deal with e-bikes?
Well, the stand-up scooters are fun. I'm just going to say, I mean, where I rode them, right, was on a bicycle path inside of a big park. So I could see, they definitely scare me to like ride them on roadways. Yeah,
Oh,
but it's so,
sure.
I mean, a really great example is downtown Indianapolis.
Yeah.
So in
Right.
downtown Indianapolis, you
Yeah.
can rent the
Yes.
Yep.
like the small scooters.
Yes.
And it is like, right, it's a fairly pedestrian friendly downtown, but there's also full blown traffic
Oh, yeah.
and construction. So,
It's
but
Indianapolis.
and there are parts where like I know that, right, they have police officers in that area that are like, oh, don't go on the sidewalks or whatever. Or like, don't, because they have that big fountain in the middle of their downtown or whatever. So like you had to like go stand outside of the circle or whatever. But I think that, in that kind of environment where there's still lots of vehicle traffic and people are getting by with those things pretty well, and seems like they're pretty popular and a good way to get around, I say that we lean into it. I think
Yeah.
that it's the way to go. I'm like very anti-car personally.
I can understand
Mhm.
and
And
appreciate
I think
that.
a lot of people are feeling that way with the gas prices and everything.
Right,
That I
right.
think,
Right, that's the reliable transportation
Right.
that
And-
I was
and-
referring to.
And
Right,
noise isn't a problem, right?
right, and they're clean and,
Yep.
and I know,
far as
I
all
for
that.
one, I know people that are, that use it for their transit to get to work, because it's, especially like after, like Uber, right? Uber's has kind of come and gone in that it's gained a lot of popularity, and then it kind of became too prohibitively expensive, or it took too long to get a ride. And whereas these, it's like if it's nearby, you can get it, you can go. And really, I think what it takes is kind of getting in contact with VO directly, and just kind of the discussion, I think, starts and ends with them in terms of how much presence of them do we want in our parks, and then how can we ensure that they can have their product in our park, but people can still use it reliably
right,
or safely
right.
or effectively or whatever it may be.
And my only complaint with the VO setup is the lack of a docking station where they just end up everywhere.
Yeah,
but
right.
but there's also some freedom in the fact that they also end up everywhere. Like in
Right.
terms of you don't have to take it back to a docking station.
Yep,
But
yep.
Right,
it's
and
not
like,
as bad as it was when they were first introduced. Like the regular bicycles were literally everywhere in this
Yeah.
town.
Right,
right, and but then
They still are.
right, and to some
At
degree
least
they
in
are.
our neighborhood.
I don't think it's nearly as bad as when they first got here, where you were seeing them on top of the bus
Right,
kiosks and
right.
whatnot. But I think it's worth having a discussion with them about like saying like, hey, like, can we get 3 of them on either side of the KRT with with a kiosk or with a docking station that are like there specifically to ride back and forth on the KRT or something along those lines.
right.
So I'm all for it. I think that like e-bikes are just biking is the future, and so
Right.
e-bikes, if that's a way to get more people into it, I'm all about it.
Yeah, and
Just-
if they have some control over speed,
I think
I think
they
that's really the,
do.
for the park,
But
that's
that-
a real
That's just the
push
one
for me.
vendor. Now there's other
Well, sure,
individuals.
right,
It-
you can have
it-
your own,
Yeah,
drive like a maniac.
I'd raise just a couple of points. One is that the technology is changing rapidly,
Right.
and there are all kinds of formats of this stuff. I mean, you got electronic skateboards, for want of a better term. You got the stand-up scooters. You've got some of these electric bikes are big, fat tires, and they're
Like
pretty
off-roady.
massive kind of things.
Right.
I was down in Birmingham, and I saw this caravan, a guy with a motorized stand-up scooter with a kid's trailer behind it, 3 kids riding the electric skateboards,
Right.
and then behind that a woman with a double bicycle with a kid on the back, and I mean it was a pretty darn big bike, just going down the sidewalk. Well, yeah, it was quite a parade, but I wouldn't want to be a pedestrian on that
Right.
sidewalk.
Right. Very much
So I mean,
valid.
I don't know how you write a set of rules to cope with all of that. I mean, it's not going to be an easy thing.
Of course. And I would add to Michael's list, remember, there is still ADA accommodation that somebody could go that avenue if they could, identify that as their ADA, device. So, we probably have more challenges ahead, but I would urge us to take a progressive, viewpoint and see what we can come up with. And, what I'm seeing next door, and again, that may be their past position, but it's, just banning. And I don't think that's realistic because we're seeing them all over already. They're in our parks. So, it's sort of the drone concern. We kind of, drones, and we, everything's banned. Well, we're running drones now and using them for roof inspections, tree inspections, any other kind of filming, sculpture. We had it out there. It was wonderful. So there was a progressive, I guess I've changed my mind over the years and, on different topics. So, I'd suggest we really dive into it. But again, I just want to introduce it, get you thinking, what are the concerns? What have you heard? What kind of questions should we be asking? What kind of information do we, want to take a look at? And there's no certain timetable, to roll out anything, but, they're around, and I think we might want to review our, regulations, kind of look and maybe we start gathering some from other communities that have permitted it, see where their successes, where their challenges are, and go from there, if that seems reasonable.
I have rather mixed feelings as a pedestrian at Meadowbrook who's been nearly run over a number of times by regular bikes.
Right.
There are some blind corners there.
Yep.
And there's no way to enforce the idea that when you're overtaking somebody that you're supposed to call out.
Right.
And being deaf in one ear, anyway, when you talk about an electric bike, there's not going to be a lot of sound.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my only concern is that we doubly reinforce the idea if you're overtaking pedestrians, please call out. Because it's so easy. You see a bird, well, I see a bird, and I step over and I don't see the person coming behind me. And some of them are moving at extraordinary speed and coming around the blind corner.
Right. So I think I totally agree with that, Roger, and I've experienced it myself. But that's, I guess my point would be, those are just traditional cyclists.
Yep.
So
Here we could, in theory, set also the speed of the e-bikes, which we can't do.
on
Right, it
regular-
could be 10 miles an hour,
Yes,
right? It might
absolutely.
could be
Yeah.
8. I don't know what that feels like,
and-
right, riding a bicycle. But I think I agree. We should, with Cedric, lean into this and see what works with us because it is
Right.
gonna just keep growing.
Well, as a cyclist myself and aging, I could certainly see myself needing
Yeah, me too.
something with assistance because I enjoy the benefit of cycling, but may need just a little help to get there. Sorry.
And I think it's always better to, instead of saying, nope, to start looking, and then even if you end up saying no,
Right.
you can say, we've decided against this because
Correct.
this, and this, as
Right.
opposed to just putting up a blanket wall. And
Right.
it just, I think that's the way we operate in general, is to
Right.
say, well, maybe it'll work, maybe it won't, but we'll look at it.
And there could be differences between the forest preserve, which have highly natural sites,
Yep.
as opposed to a park site, even though we have naturalized parks. So it is a very deep and thick topic, and I recommend we take our time and go through it. Lastly, go ahead.
I just had one other point.
Yep.
And, the first underrepresented study, this study, transportation's a
Yep.
big issue.
Yep.
And this could be a great opportunity that, could help some get around. I hear all the different concerns as well, but I want to throw that out as a major concern we have at the Park District and having transportation to get to our programs
Right.
and
Back
parks.
quickly to Cedric's point, I think just, can't afford a car, don't want a car, not into cars. I've heard a lot of people suggesting if they had even in this climate, one car and an e-bike, they could probably trade off within their family, enough to reduce one car. So I think there is some merit in thinking in those terms. But again, there's a lot of other issues, and the realities we often know outweigh the concepts. So we have to get down to hit the bricks on that. Last, I just want to, it's bike related, but mention the City of Urbana has taken the lead on preparing an ITEP grant for Baker's Lane. That's the 33-foot right-of-way on the east side of Weaver Park that links Main Street to Washington Street. So our discussions right now are, do we want to pull that into the park? It would seem that that could become, let's call it on the far east side of the park, the north-south connection that would get to the school and whatnot. So we're discussing that. I think, we're proposing it goes into the park, and we would like to work, with them on that. We're also talking about the widths, 8 foot is sort of the standard or minimum. 10 feet we know has a lot of benefits. I think something I would propose is, if we needed to, could we help contribute cost to get a 10-foot wide path? I think our benefits that we see at Meadowbrook and some of our other 10-foot wide trails at Crystal Lake are more conducive to walking, riding, the topics we just talked about, more space. We know our vehicles can use them as access roads, if you will, to get to areas for maintenance and whatnot. So that's the discussion we're having. But again, we're really happy they're taking the lead. I think the discussion of who should take that lead, us or them, and I think they recommended that that's more of a transportation route, and I would probably agree with that. I think, in fact, we identified that in our KRT study when we looked at connections around the park. I think we noted that. So certainly that's an important leg of Weaver Park. Certainly that moves us all into starting thinking about development of that park as well. We know we have the KRT funds coming to build the, premier shelter and the pavilion. So we'll actually be getting a chunk of trail, and I think we're going to begin starting major development, at Weaver Park, which is very exciting.
And what happens at the south end? So it
Yes.
isn't just a straight shot
Right.
from Maine to Washington, right?
I
There's
had
some,
our diagram and it's very conceptual. It's not even necessarily, worked out, but essentially at Main Street, it would, start to, head straight down. And then there's a couple of opportunities to, curve into the park. As it heads back toward the school district's property on the south end, it would straighten back out to make what we'd call a good,
so it would
get to
go all the
school.
way to Washington on the east side of the
Correct.
schools.
yes.
Okay.
And then our future, we could spoke off that and do other loop
Okay.
paths, and so again, once we get things more squared up, we can bring in diagrams and share it. But again, the city is taking the lead on that. We're grateful. They're doing that work. They're working with Regional Planning Commission. So we'll give more updates. So again, Weaver Park could be, seeing some changes and could be exciting for the future.
Right.
Yeah, it'd be amazing.
They're also including the portion from
Oh, correct.
the corner down to the
Washington.
health and wellness facility. So come in front of the school
Yep.
and to the health and wellness
Good point.
facility.
As you know, we did that transportation analysis for the health and
Right.
wellness, and that Washington strip was an area that we looked at and knew would be better served with an off-road trail. And that will be a part of that as well, so that it will benefit our facility. So good timing and good development, and it all came together, at least so far. Let's wait till we get the grant and move into construction and make that happen. That's all I had. I can answer other questions if you had any.
Thank you, Tim. Moving on to the President's report. Don't have anything special tonight other than reminders of meetings. UPDAC meeting on the 27th of September. Then our study session, October 4, on a different location than usual. This is Urbana Indoor Aquatic Center, so need to,
Take note.
pardon?
I say take note.
Yes, indeed, because
Could please have a reminder of that day of.
Yeah, about 3 feet tall with
Otherwise
flashing
I'll be,
lights.
yeah. And then October 11 is our regular board meeting, and it would include a review of our annual audit and management report, a semi-annual review of status of strategic initiatives, and a beginning look at tax levy options. So,
Oh, won't that be fun, Laura?
yeah, Laura's fun day.
I don't have preliminaries for the audit yet. I just emailed them about that Friday.
Yeah.
So we may or may not be discussing that on October 4th or 11th.
Well, we need to. So anyway.
That's why I poked him.
Yeah. Okay. And that's about all I have. Moving on to liaison reports, the finance study group met actually before, on the 2nd of September, before our study session, and I think between what we talked about at the study session and the remainder of what we're going to be talking about here tonight, I think that pretty well covers what we discussed in that finance study group. Was there anything you thought needed to be added, Roger?
I agree.
And the policy study group is,
We have not met.
yep. And Parks Foundation representative, Roger.
We also had a very small group that met. They were gone on a different kind of vacation because they go when all the students have come back for school. The people on the foundation go on their vacations in September. Anyway, a few things that we talked about. They talked about having focused donor events that are focused on a specific topic or project or whatever. So in early '23, they're going to have a focused donor event that is focused on scholarships, and particularly for the Health and Wellness Center. So that date hasn't been set yet, but I think it's a good idea. We talked about ARPA, and Tim filled them in kind of on where the situation was. And then Kelsey talked about getting the fundraising group together for raising funds for the playground at Meadowbrook. And that was it.
Any questions for Roger on that? Okay. And the UPDAC planning study group, there's not been any update on that. Okay. Alrighty, moving on to old business. The only item is whatever we dropped off the consent agenda, which was nothing. So we are now on to new business. Item A, action to approve a contract with Farnsworth Group.
I think Kara's here and is going to give us an update. Just a little lead in. Staff's really excited about this study that we're about to undertake. In my time, we haven't really done a plan like this where we looked at all of our athletics, the outdoor stuff, and put a plan together and update some master plans. And I think part of that, which Kara will probably mention, getting some input from the community. What kind of facilities do we really need for the future? And what's our role in that in the community, and how do we start to put a plan together that will let us systematically, work through that plan. So Kara, over to you.
Thanks, Tim. So back in 2016, staff from planning and operations and recreation, specifically athletics, started talking about what we initially coined the outdoor sports and games study. And it was basically all outdoor sports and fields, because at that time we had, kickball had so many teams, like 24 teams, and we kind of found our niche in different sports that were outside of the regular, perhaps soccer or a huge softball league for adults or things like that. And then we were faced with the opportunity for indoor recreation. And so we switched from assessing our outdoor fields and what new activities we may want to help facilitate to visiting like a dozen indoor recreation facilities with UPDAC and so on. And so the outdoor fields and their condition and the people that we were serving and wanted to serve better kind of had to be put as a side project while we got health and wellness to where it is now. And so with the construction of the health and wellness facility, there will obviously be the loss of our 2 softball diamonds at Prairie Park, the only 2 ball diamonds of that size that are right next to each other and can facilitate tournaments and things like that. So we're starting to get more questions about, what will happen to some of the programs that either rent or UPD hosts on those fields. And we had already wanted to assess the quality of our fields and look to the future. And we know that there's some other things happening, like pickleball is becoming more popular in our community specifically. We always get the skate park question. So there's just so many things going on as far as outdoor wellness and recreation is concerned. In addition to that, there is the outdoor amenities to the health and wellness facility at Prairie Park. There's the 2005 Weaver Park Master Plan that had something like 9 soccer fields and 3 ball diamonds in it, which maybe is not the route that we want to go now. So there's just so many moving parts to our thought process for this study. And that's what really spurred, such a large list of services from Farnsworth Group. And I think we're excited to work with Farnsworth as well because they're on board with all of the community input that we have come to do in all of our projects. And so they're not just like putting the 2 meetings in and calling it good. But really there's a lot of different touches with gathering input, analyzing that input, creating some options for master plans and things like that. So I think that the reason that the process is perhaps so long from October of this year to around midsummer of next year is just because we always do things in phases, getting input as we go, making adjustments to have a better overall plan at the end. And so what will come out of this is a major plan for Weaver and Prairie, kind of a combined master plan. And also there will be recommendations for district-wide our fields and outdoor sports. So there's a master plan component, and that'll come with cost estimates and renderings and things like that for how to move forward. But then they're also looking district-wide as well. So if there's anything I left out, Tim, otherwise I'm happy to answer any questions regarding it.
Good overview.
One of the components of this whole thing appears to be 2 community surveys, which are not actually included in the scope of the Farnsworth work. Can you explain to us a little what the concept is for funding that and who's actually going to do that survey work?
So Farnsworth will help basically UPD create the survey. And we'll do it in the manner that we've been doing a lot of our surveys recently, like for example with the Meadowbrook Playground, where we use SurveyMonkey, which is a pretty good survey tool that allows you to break the data down in a lot of different ways. And so we always have been using a survey with other outreach methods. And so UPD will be creating the survey and then partnering it with other, in-person things and so on.
Yeah.
Another example, we want to engage with the schools in trying to, can we get something that, at a student level, that we could maybe get some feedback from, the family unit on what they, could be simpler, could be a little bit different, but as Kara mentioned, trying to get a variety of sources to get input. I think that's going to be one of the most critical pieces of this. What does the public want? What do they need? What do they see as important to them? Also, it gives other less obvious activities. For example, skate parks. I know our last big community survey when we did our other, strategic plan way back working with Ron Vine, they had a unique way of, do you want this? How much of is it being served in so you had to sort of identify what do you want? Is it being met and how much to what level? And we noticed in that sort of approach, things like skate parks and bike facilities really ranked at the very bottom because it's kind of an alternative wave or whatever. We want to come back at it and give those kind of opportunities a better chance. How do you create advocacy for, a skate park? I think we've, had 4 groups approaches. We have a group right now that's interested or an individual, but we don't have a way to gauge what interest is out there in the community. Yet we know there's a online on the web, why doesn't Urbana have a skate park? So they're already talking about us, and there's youth and, individuals that are seeking that don't have a venue, if you will, to speak to us or to get our attention. So that's another way we want to have multiple avenues for input. Could be other people going out and talking to groups or, just anecdotally hearing and listening. And then, we know athletics, while they tend to go for long periods, they do trend. So I think adult softball was mentioned. We used to be kings of that when I first came to the district. I don't know anybody that's playing men's softball. There might be some leagues, that are still going. And then how do we, look at other things like, we're doing alternative recreational types of things like, disc golf or, some of the cricket opportunities. So again, how do you bring all those sort of things together in the main scheme without just saying, well, we can sell soccer, we can sell this, we can sell that, and that's our plan. So that's some of the thinking. And then side issues, we know we have the athletic fields at Brookins. The county owns that property. The county's moving out of Brookins and may sell that. What of any of that land should we be talking to them about? Do we have a vision? Do we have any plans that we could show how things might fit together a little better? So I'd urge us to be thinking about getting that conversation going sooner than later so that we could see, you know, what may come of that. You know, we don't know how they'll, you know, perceive, but we do know they bought the building downtown, they're leaving Brookins, and they personally don't need all that land. What they do with it and how they deal with it, you know, we don't know, but we'd like to have a conversation. We also know that we have ongoing overlaps with the Urbana schools in, you know, tennis or in baseball, and, you know, what are the future of those things, and how do we want to align ourselves in, you know, providing services. I know in my very brief discussion, you know, with Dr. Ivory Tatum was, you know, I know the schools see a lot of, you know, our sports as entry-level sports that could lead to future middle school and high school, you know, connections in athletics. So are we working together and in tandem so that we can help, you know, that system? So there's a number of what I'd call higher concepts that need to come together on this, as well as the physical planning and information gathering that Kara outlined. So as you can see, it's a, you know, it's a big step, it's a big project, and we have 2 parks that we really need a clearer plan and a vision, what's actually going to be there. Because as Kara stated, I think the old, which still feels new, master plan for Weaver Park is probably not going to be built like that. You know, I don't think those are the needs we have today, and, you know, that's, you know, not taking into what's already occurred and how is that site being used, you know, today. So by combining that much larger area, can we carve out appropriate areas for investing in the resources, you know, facilities with resources that are needed, and hopefully get some longevity out of that, and that they're good investments, and not, well, now we need to do this, or we don't need that anymore, we're going to go do this. So again, getting a plan that might service, you know, the next 10 and 15, 20 years out is I think what we're talking about. Did I leave anything out?
Well, I'm certainly not questioning the need of that planning. I'm just wondering, it seems like this is only part of the piece, and I'm not, even now, I'm still not quite understanding how the public input part of it is going to work, and whether we need to be allocating some money to do that as well, or but you're imagining that all happening essentially in-house in terms of personnel.
And I think what we were hoping, correct me if I'm wrong, staff, but we were hoping, how can we help reduce costs using our staff in a way that's comfortable and familiar to us, and then what do we need to rely on, you know, the planners, you know, the consultants. So I think we're trying to hedge a little bit, you know, take on, we also got, you know, a cost for additional meetings. You know, we tend to have more meeting and discussion in Urbana, has been my experience. So I fully envision different groups either coming to us wanting to talk, or us going out and making sure we've connected, you know, with them, and finding a way to bring that information back and put it into a, you know, a format that it can be then evaluated, or some analysis can be done out of it.
And when it comes to using online survey tools, or, you know, printing them out and using them in person at events, I think we've kind of found that when we're in control of making adjustments to the questions and using our own verbiage and things, we get better results. And so, for example, like, if we look through something that a consultant has created as far as a survey or a questionnaire, and we want some text changes, it could be like a week before they get that back to us. And we get a better product, I think, in the end by controlling some of that, and then just getting their input on questions or what outcomes they need to work into the different master planning processes. And so I do feel comfortable with us taking on that portion of it, and then them facilitating some of, you know, making the big boards for community meetings and things like that.
Right.
And it looks like they're going to run the focus groups.
Yes. And we talked about, for focus groups, maybe they can seem a little bit intimidating, or I guess overwhelming, because they're more formal, and then having potentially like an UPDAC member or someone who represents the community pairing with the consultant as well. So UPD doesn't want to be sort of in there like controlling the narrative, of
Right.
course, but maybe there's a way to make it a little bit more approachable.
I know some of our prelim work, you know, we talked with a few other park districts, got copies of very similar documents, but I know like Glenview Park District had a very similar situation. A variety of lands that were used over the years for different ways. A real intense user group, but not a plan to get the types of facilities. And a staff that was very good at putting together information. So they wanted to be able to, as Kara said, be a little more in control of that information handling, because they know their citizens and they know how they can communicate in a way to get the information. So they took on that role, and when we looked at that, we thought, well, that's similar to what Urbana does and can do in our situation. So we sort of modeled a few different approaches together to try to get us, you know, a comprehensive, you know, look at this. And again, emphasizing the master planning. That alone is a separate, you know, usually fairly costly, you know, process to get a professional plan done. So we, again, think this approach will bring it together and serve us well. Michael, we could get more clarification if that's helpful to
Yeah.
you.
Oh, well,
to map
I mean,
out
I
any follow-up,
that-
bring it back next month if that's what's needed.
I was just trying to understand more broadly how you were envisioning that process and whether there's actually some need for professional help
I
in
see.
that as well.
Gotcha.
Um,
Well, I know for our Meadowbrook playground planning, that's another good example where we had to tweak it. We extended, you know, windows because either somebody didn't hear, we wanted to, or whatever, different reasons to go back out or to go to another, you know, group and talk. So I think that flexibility, I think, I can't remember the exact, it was, I think, Crystal Lake Park plan. I know our Franklin Street friends had more questions. I think we had some survey, sorry, I'm trying to get our project lined up, but, you know, we extended some windows. We had questions. So having some flexibility and, well, consultants are done, sorry. We can't really do anything to, you know, kind of input your concern or your level. So we're trying to be as accommodating as we can. For the very reason there's such a wide scope of interest groups that have very different, you know, you have your soccer community that's very different than, you know, indoor basketball that's very different, you know, from, you know, cricket, for example, and they're on different scales. But they're all important, so we want to make sure we have ample opportunity to, you know, hear and listen and give people a chance to respond.
Right, and we also want to be sure that we aren't erecting barriers to certain categories of folks. I mean, there's some people are not going to go online and do SurveyMonkey. They're just not going to do it.
Right.
Um,
And we would hope maybe a focus group might come to that.
yeah.
Or if we found we needed to add another focus group, hey, our group not hearing us over here, so we may have to do some adjustments. We're also thinking different languages, and we know that anything that goes home in the school format will have to be in a few languages. So right there, trying to hear from people and making sure we're communicating on their terms, you know, is going to be critical.
well,
So-
I'm doing too much talking from the board. I mean, other folks have comments or questions about this? And is anyone prepared to make a motion to approve this?
I mean, I'll just say that I'm very interested to see, you know, how this survey data comes out. That's like really what's most interesting to me about this is just like to know what it is our community wants or needs for in terms of outdoor sports and amenities. So I'm just looking forward to the results.
Well, I move to award the Weaver and Prairie Park Master Planning Services to Farnsworth Group, Incorporated, in the amount of $55,919, the 10% contingency of $5,591.90.
Second.
That's been moved, and I think Roger was the second in this case. Is there any further discussion or questions on this point? Hearing none, we should take our roll call vote, and I forget which side we did the last time, but let's start with Cedric.
Aye.
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 Okay, and that carries unanimously. And we look forward to hearing more about the survey portions of this. Action to approve resolution 2022-11 for an Osland grant application for Meadowbrook Park Playground.
As you know, we've all been working on the plan for the replacement playground and the subsequent Osland application. Kara can give us some updates on where we are with that.
So it's definitely no surprise to you that the Meadowbrook playground is being replaced. That's good news. But the Osland application is pretty exciting because they actually increased the amount from maximum of 400,000 to a maximum of 600,000 for this round. And so we know just sort of with supply chain and how expensive things can be, and just to get a quality project at Meadowbrook, the amount of funds that are required. And so the Osland application, as in previous years, they typically like to fund things that have a diversity of amenities, so not just a playground, but here we talk about some of the pavilion, adjacent pavilion rehabilitations that will go into the project, some interpretive signage and accessibility signage, concrete game board tables. Those are actually at Crystal Lake from a prior Osland grant. IDNR just loves to suggest them because they're kind of a lower cost amenity, but they offer something much different than a playground, for example. And so you'll see those in the Osland application. We have some musical play equipment, native shrubs and shade trees, grasses and flowers. We kind of took down the number that Upland recommended for trees and shrubs and so on, and so we just want to make sure that, you know, we can commit to this in the Osland project, and then if things are successful and we want to add more, we can always go above and beyond with UPD funds. And then, of course, the concrete paths, and there's a lot of accessibility features to this playground, and then design and engineering fees with Upland as well. And so we worked out a budget for all of these things and came to a 50-50 split of 550,000 requests for Osland, and then 550,000 from what UPD has budgeted for this project as well. And then I'm happy to expand on anything specifically or answer any questions.
I think I would call it musical play equipment as opposed to either musical instruments. Just because a musical instrument to me is like a trumpet, and you don't want to.
Right. Yeah, no loose.
I mean, it's just a better descriptor for what we're going to have in there.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Got it.
Well, I think it's great that we have extra dollars we can ask for.
Yes.
Yes.
A little margin there.
I move to approve resolution 2022-11, authorizing the Urbana Park District's Osland grant application for the Meadowbrook Park Playground.
Second.
That's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion or questions on the point? Hearing none, we do a roll call starting with Roger.
Aye.
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 And that carries unanimously with all 5 commissioners voting. We had no new business removed from the consent agenda, so that brings us to comments from commissioners.
I, of course, have something to say. 2 things. I noticed in the paper how ARC has gone to a whole lot more weights.
I saw that too. We
So I
discussed
thought
that.
well, yeah. So I just wanted to make sure that, I figured you'd seen it, but I just wanted to make sure.
Yep.
I was talking to Steve Summers, and I was saying, oh, you know, Urbana. He hadn't a clue as to what Urbana is. And I was surprised, but I expect that he is reflective of the general population of Urbana. And so as I was sitting here thinking about it, and I wondered, what if Urbana went to the farmer's market once? I mean, I'm trying to think of some place that it could go that it would have, I mean, because we're not going to get any coverage from the newspaper.
I think that is a killer idea.
But it's a, you know, because then, then it's outreach, then people see it, and it's such a wide group of people. that are at the farmer's market. And I'll get the city might give us a space to park that, so we wouldn't have to pay. Anyway, that was, so what I'm looking for is for, a wider presence, and not that I think that Urbana isn't doing, I mean, I think it's doing a great job, and I'm so happy that we have it. But I want more people to know about it. And so I'm just trying to think of more ways that we can let people know that doesn't cost us much either, and, I mean,
Right.
mostly in time and
I think that's
staff.
actually like
That's a
a
great
killer
idea.
idea. And I'm actually kind of surprised that we don't already have kind of a presence at the farmers market in some degree, just in terms of showing up, talking about upcoming events, talking about our projects. You know, this is a really great spot to do our surveys because, right, like the Urbana Farmers Market is a vibrant community affair that happens constantly.
Yep,
There's like a great source for us, so.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. I think a awareness campaign sounds like it's in order to
Yeah,
make sure
yeah, I
folks.
mean, it
Yeah, and
doesn't-
they often put the sort of, I'm thinking in the very, whatever that, what is the road in, right? Like the bike workshop
Oh,
is
in the,
there.
in the
Yeah.
Bloodmobile or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
it is
yeah,
that
sorry,
comes
right
in.
there.
So it could be the opposite.
So, which is also great high traffic, but there's also a lot of outreach going on with kids and, activities, sprouts at the market, which is in line with what.
Right,
But also just reading the first couple of pages, right, still it's about knowing what's available, and so just a general outreach campaign.
And I mean, even if we, I mean, it takes time and effort, but
Yeah.
even just like having like a regular booth there, just whether it just be an opportunity for people to come and talk about stuff that the park district is doing, or to sign up for events or programming, or, lots of like music and stuff, so like we could have our
Oh, the
groups from the
ukulele guys could be
right,
there. Yeah.
the uke group could come and perform at the farmers market. There's a lot of
It'd be
opportunity.
better than some of the stuff.
Okay.
Yeah,
But-
you're right. I think that's, yeah, I mean, and it's, it's more,
Right, like
it's asking more from people who are really busy, but
I mean, like the Champaign County Democrats have a regular booth at
Right.
even when it's not anywhere near election season, they're
Yep,
still out
yep,
there.
yep.
So it
Have a-
maybe makes sense for us to be out there as well.
the planetarium is there. I mean, there are a lot of groups, and I think that, I mean, maybe there are other ways that make more sense than that, but I'm looking for ways to get information out
Right.
to the park district.
I think that's a great idea. I know I've done outreach for the Forest Preserve District, and we're there for 4.5 hours, and we don't sit down. I mean,
Oh, is that right?
it's a constant flow of people, and it's people of all ethnicities, it's people of all ages, it's people who are new to the community, people who've been around a long time and still don't know, in that case about the Forest Preserve District. But I think we're in somewhat the same circumstances in terms of people knowing about us. So I think it's a great idea.
And I think
go
it
ahead.
could be an interesting thing to engage UPDAC in.
Yeah, I was just going to
Yeah.
say.
Right,
Because
exactly.
I've
Yep,
been
yep.
sort of
Involve
looking at our
UPDAC
agenda, it's a
And
lot
the
of
foundation,
lot of
I
sit
think
and
would be
get.
good, too.
Yes, and the
So maybe there's a way to
foundation.
rotate.
But I
or-
know that at Jetty Roads Day, for example, there were UPDAC members who
Mhm.
volunteered, and I
Right.
think that was great, right? Like, it's not always
Great
something we've
idea.
always done, I think.
Yeah, no, that's right.
So I think that
Great idea.
gives them something.
Yeah, and I guess I would say, I agree with, trying to market it. I think what we've been doing is marketing it to the underrepresented,
Right.
and probably not Steve Summers. So,
Well,
But
and
Steve
that- I mean,
Summers should still know about it.
He should.
He should still
It-
know about it.
I mean, last year when we did the history for Carl for the funding, we took it to 152 sites in a year, so.
It's been busy, it's been everywhere, but not everybody knows about it, and I think that we're putting it to probably its best use, by the way, so I'm not complaining about how it's being used.
No,
I
no,
just
no,
want,
no.
I just want the citizens of Urbana to know what, I mean, I don't think that Carl would mind knowing that, that we were saying, this is here because of Carl, this is a Carl-sponsored vehicle, and, it came through a donation, because I think it gives you a better sense of community to know that you've got something that's so cool and all the nifty things that they're doing.
Well, it's just like a giant banner, right? A
Yeah.
billboard.
It is.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
it is.
Advertising.
Stuff
A huge
inside it,
banner,
yeah.
a very interesting banner.
And I think they've got I have the feeling they have it kind of down to a science now, the stuff that goes, the entertainment stuff that goes in.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
But
so,
every event we go to, we probably have 7 full-time staff at. So I'm kind of thinking of from that perspective
Right.
too. And
right,
And
right.
I did
Yeah, I'm
want to
not
mention,
sure.
it is at our other major events. It was at the art fair and, they're at, so, if you're at those events, you should see it. It's right at the entrance of, but what we understand is maybe there's more we can tell.
oh yeah,
And I
There's
think the same
definitely more
goes
we can
for
do on that.
UPDAC and the foundation, because I
Negating
still
that.
have people telling me,
Yep, yep.
I've never heard of them. Who are they? UPDAC.
Yeah, yeah.
That's been going 50 years, so there may be a way to, get everybody involved and kind of make a new presence. Good thoughts.
Yep.
I have 2 comments. One, I wanted to say, I wholeheartedly endorse the idea of including e-bikes. I just kind of wanted to express concern about some of the pedestrian bicycle
Absolutely.
interactions.
It's real.
It is real, and there's been some near collisions. The other thing I wanted to say is very positive. I don't know if you've seen this sculpture yet. It's right as you enter the Windsor Road parking lot. It's on the right side toward the creek. Touch it. It is the most satisfying tactile sculpture you will ever experience. And I love this guy's work because he does another piece down in Timponi Grove. But I think that the group bringing in the sculptures has done a wonderful job bringing that in. But I love that piece particularly.
It's really good, and
Because
I
in
don't know.
museums, they won't let you touch the stuff.
You have to it's touchable. I mean,
Yeah, no, I think,
marble,
that's great,
yeah.
that's a big part of it.
And it's just such a lovely smooth feel.
Well, it's a high technology piece too, if you didn't know.
Yes.
John Isherwood's work, he wrote the computer program that then tells the stone carving machine how to cut the whole thing out. So he started by doing it by hand, and then he wrote the program, now the machine. So picture a 3D printer concept that carved a complete block of stone just like that from his program. So that's bringing engineering and
We're gonna
technology
be unnecessary in
into
another
it. So
1,000
that's,
years.
to me, probably nobody really knows that. So I agree. Thank you, Roger.
I really like that.
Take a close look at it, and you can see little start and stops probably where it almost looks like a relief map, in the way that it's laid out. So it's pretty cool. He's a very, very successful artist.
Who is leading the sculpture guided tour on October 3rd?
That's Janet is going to lead that. For the one that Visit Champaign County is hosting.
It was on our calendar.
Yeah,
I was just
yeah.
curious. Okay.
Yes. They had reached out a few months ago to me and said, hey, we, said, perfect, we'll have some new artwork up. It'd be great. I think they're looking at other sites, but they'll be at Meadowbrook too.
And you should say something to our viewing audience about the Chicago
Yeah,
Tribune.
that was a nice write-up.
Oh, great. I sent it on to the board, but the Chicago Tribune had reached out to us several months ago and said they were doing an article on sculpture parks, and ours had been recommended to them. I'm not sure how they found us, but yes. And so we're in very, very good company. Most of those are very well-to-do, establishments. So that's a nice way to put it. Or have a university, or a museum, or a mansion, or some other means, supporting their program.
Not just tax dollars.
Right. So we're in very good company, and I think the other added is ones with a natural sort of site, and so that really carves out Meadowbrook really well. So I think we gave them more information that they wrote about. We gave them more photos, but hopefully it was enough to at least put us into a category of review that, and for many we're pretty close, depending on where you're coming from, as opposed to, at least for our residents, to go to Stevens Point, Wisconsin is a good drive. But also I'm interested in visiting all the other ones that I haven't been to, so that's opportunity for us to go compare and make new friends and see what kind of arrangements we could make. So thanks for calling it out.
I too wanted to say, I was really glad to meet the bison buffalo
Yes.
sculpture guy, sculptor guy
Right,
at the,
it's a wonderful artist.
yeah, he was a really interesting,
He is.
interesting person to talk to, and
Right.
so whoever thought to invite him, that was a stroke of genius.
I knew we were
And
coming,
he's
and I just,
he's very excited about that piece.
I'm just inviting artists now. I've sent postcards, and, you know, if they're a person we've worked with, just
Yeah.
make sure and try to get, because I think that adds to the, you know,
I agree,
ambiance, and, you know, everyone likes the real deal, I guess.
yeah.
Any other comments? Seeing none, then I think we've exhausted our agenda. I'll declare us adjourned.
Right, thanks all.
And thanks to all for coming out tonight.